see it. I'm sorry? A perfectly reasonable question, and we don't know. We didn't try.
Windows would probably fix it in like a check disk.
Right, sorry, yeah. The question was, can Linux handle this file system? I'm sorry, can Windows handle this file system? And we didn't check. But you can check yourself, because coming up is specific. So here is the a portion of the file system image, of the MFT entry. The stuff in blue and red is the specifics of this entry for a file called readme.txt. And for example, the file reference, 5D, some zeros, 0100, that would normally be the reference to where the file lives. We just changed it manually to 5C, which causes it to refer to its parent. And then you have to change related information. Actual and real sizes are 0 to be a directory, and flags are changed to be suitable for a directory versus readme.txt. So you can try to mount that on Windows and see what you get. Is that my 2 minutes? Probably.
Basically.
Yeah.
Do we have the extra partitions bug in here?
Yeah. It's,
that one's just kind of funny.
This one's cool too. Give me one more minute. So this one is strange. If you make a directory structure that has super deeply nested directories, like several hundred or several thousand children inside, we were able to get a crash in which EIP is controlled by us partly, although it's not as exciting as it sounds, although it's really weird, as you'll see. We think it's due to an optimization. Rather than having to recurse and do whatever its directory handling function is every time it sees a directory, we think that it optimizes when there's only one directory that's a child. It does it immediately without recursing. Let's see, I'm going to skip ahead. So what happens is you can control the value of EIP with the number of directories that you nest. This EIP is related to the number of nested directories. But as you can see, it's way too low to be anything. CA. No instructions or anything useful there. So that one's rather strange. And then finally, this one's really quick. If you just make a disk with too many partitions, Linux can see it, and encase stops after the 25th. So here, fdisk in Linux says, oh, hey, cool disk. And encase shows us some of the partitions, and we stop at 25.
Encase runs out of letters.
Yeah. And then after acquiring, they're just not there. So that's kind of curious. And then these you can and should read the slides. But I'm going to give it to Alex to discuss Encase Enterprise.
Okay, so you guys probably don't have too many questions about that. You can go to the details in the paper, but basically bugs that hide stuff, bugs that crash it, and sometimes bugs that crash it with memory corruption that if you play with it, maybe or maybe not cannot be turned into something worse. So those are bugs in how Encase deals with data it has. And kind of the standard, the standard forensics workflow for a lot of people using Encase, especially in a law enforcement environment, is you go with your guys who kick down the door or something, and your SWAT team goes in, and then somebody comes out behind them and grabs the computer, and it's got a hard drive in it, and the examiner, the tech, takes the whole computer, and they wrap a bag around it, and they put a sticker on it, and they sign their name to it, and they take it to a lab, and that's where they take it apart, and they see that the hard drive comes out of the computer, and they say pretty reasonably, hey, this is the hard drive that belonged to the suspect's computer, and they slap a label on that, and then they put it up to a hardware write blocker, which are things that are tested and approved by the National Institute of Justice often, and they use that to pull the drive down, and they copy it, and they do an MD5 at real time. And they're pretty darn sure that from all the way from somebody kicking down the door down to it getting into Encase, that this is the hard drive that was moved that belonged to the suspect. So that's great, and that works for law enforcement in some cases, but that's not a workflow that's very convenient for some people. And to help the people for whom that workflow is not convenient, there's a thing called Encase Enterprise Edition, which I saw a lot of hands raise up of people who have used this product or seen it. Encase Enterprise Edition is based around Encase Forensic, and for the most part gives you exactly the same user interface and features as Encase Forensic. The one thing that's kind of added on is the ability to get hard drives remotely over a network. And there is network acquisition in Encase in the regular Encase, but that's like Linen, where it's supposed to be a crossover cable, right? It's really just kind of like, instead of using a parallel cable or a USB or something, you're using a crossover network cable. There's not supposed to be anybody else on the network. I'm sure it is a completely insecure protocol, but who cares when it's in, physically next to each other with a cable between them. Encase Enterprise is designed to be used on a normal corporate network during the day, while people are going about their business, or perhaps in the middle of the night. And so that's the whole point. It provides you're able to image a machine remotely, and that means grabbing the memory, looking at the running processes, and then grabbing stuff off the hard drive. Why do you want to do that? Well, if you're a big company, and why does Guidance sell this? Well, Encase Forensic is a $6,000 product. Anybody want to say how much Encase Enterprise costs? I'm sorry? It's a six-figure product, yeah. Sure, theoretically you can get it for $27,000, but that's like trying to buy a 3 Series for 30 grand, right? If you want the chairs, it's more. So from clients of ours that have used the product, they have quoted us numbers in the mid 6 figures. It's an expensive product. And perhaps it's worthwhile for people because it is very convenient, right? If you're a big global enterprise and you have 50 offices around the world and you have your one information security team, if you need to read a hard drive in Budapest, you do not want to put that person on a plane, right, to go seize the hard drive. It's much easier. You can download the slides, sir. You don't have to take pictures with your camera phone. But he's got a Homeland Security shirt. That's awesome. Taking pictures with the camera phone. But it allows you, so that's obviously a very, very convenient thing. It allows you to do instant response on a running server, right? To seize a hard drive, you usually have to turn the machine off. While there are live system forensics that you can do to a disconnected machine, if, say, I think a machine's broken into, but I don't know if it was, and if it's a very important thing, like it's my SAP server or my PeopleSoft server, I can do forensics in real time on it without ever taking it down. Right. It allows an investigating an ongoing crime without telling the subject. Now, I've been told that doing this might have some legal implications, but say I think Bob is embezzling. If I grab a snapshot of Bob's hard drive every night while he's gone, maybe that will allow me to put up more and more, better evidence of what he's doing. And maybe it allows you, if you're a paranoid employee and your employer uses Encase Enterprise, maybe it allows them to go on fishing expeditions without you knowing, right? If they think somebody in accounting is doing something bad, Encase Enterprise makes it really easy to pull down everybody's hard drive in accounting without somebody running off their screwdriver. So this is why it costs so much money. Is Encase Enterprise only used for internal corporate investigation? So we have heard from people that the evidence collected by Encase Enterprise has been used in people's prosecutions. And Guidance actually cites some use from law enforcement who have been, I guess Chris can talk about this, encouraged to use Encase Enterprise because it is less invasive than going and kicking somebody's door down and taking their hard drive. Also, I'd be suspecting that Encase Enterprise actually used a lot in civil litigation, right? When we've talked to lawyers about electronic evidence, a lot of them have said it's used way more in civil cases. Most criminal cases, there's no electronic evidence. But there's no big civil litigation between two big companies these days where there's no electronic evidence, right? There's going to be email or stuff on people's hard drives and stuff. So I'm sure in that kind of situation where it's civil discovery, everybody's friendly, there's no kicking down of any doors, no SWAT teams, which I'm sure the gentleman in the Homeland Security Department is really sad in those kinds of situations. But that kind of stuff doesn't happen. You want to have a nice, friendly way of doing it that doesn't interrupt business operations, and Encase Enterprise would be great. So does that mean that Encase Enterprise provides the same level of protection of confidence as somebody going and grabbing a hard drive? Well, this is kind of something that is a little bit danced around by Guidance and their public documentation. There's a document called Authenticating Encase Enterprise Evidence, which is a legal document written by their chief counsel and their chief legal officer. And this is a quote from it, that Encase Enterprise is ideally suited to recover and authenticate data over a local or wide area network. In many cases, the use of Encase Enterprise is more than merely acceptable, but in fact constitutes best practices, right? So they're pretty much saying using Encase Enterprise is as good or better than just using Encase Forensic on a machine, on a hard drive that you have in your hand. So this is the standard that has been set for us to talk about Encase Enterprise today. Why should we trust evidence that's grabbed over the network, right? I don't have to say in this room, networks are bad places, including big corporate networks. Now, that sounds obvious to everybody in this room. Perhaps it's not as obvious to a judge. But networks are bad places. And to make you feel better about this, Encase Enterprise Edition has a rather complex crypto system, which is used during the network acquisition portion. Now, this Ncase is not an open source product, as everybody knows. And they're under, I guess, no legal obligation to completely document their network protocols. They do have a couple of documents that describe these network protocols. At least one of them uses lots of pretty pictures and no math. So it's actually kind of difficult to figure out how the product works, right? You can do a packet dump. You could get Wireshark and look at a bunch of Ethernet frames. That's a very difficult way to reverse engineer a crypto system, right? Fortunately for us, guidance was issued 2 patents by the United States Trademark and Patent Office. And patents are public domain and freely available from Google. So if anybody wants to see them, we have them up here. But the patents are very, very good descriptions of a enterprise capture process. Now, the words Ncase enterprise are never used in these documents, right? Because they're patents of general methods, not patents that protect specific products. But it kind of makes obvious sense that they would patent their money-making product. And it turns out that if you look at the publicly available information, including a sales document that Guidance very nicely provided us, that those public documents that say this is Ncase Enterprise Edition correspond to one-to-one with the information in the patents. So I just want to kind of set the stage that our analysis was done through information from patents, publicly available information from Guidance, observation, and testing things where possible. So that's how you have to analyze something like this. It's not really properly documented. And we couldn't find any place in which a lawyer had gone and made Guidance turn over the real specs for their crypto. But I think we're as close to, we got as much as we needed to do a proper analysis. So when you design a crypto system, the first thing you have to do is you have to sit down and you have to decide what it does, right? Lots of bad crypto systems out there exist because people miss up their goals. They think, I want confidentiality when what they really want is integrity. Right? We see this all the time. If you're a web application and you want to have a cookie that has the user's user ID in it, should you encrypt it with a stream cipher? Do you really care? Is that a secret, the person's user ID? No. It's something that when you send it to the user, you don't want modified. So it needs to be integrity protected, not confidentiality protected. Right? And that's why you use something like an HMAC instead of like a stream cipher where bits can be used. And so to avoid those mistakes, you have to sit out and say what your goals are. It's difficult in these documents to find the actual goals of the crypto system. We sat down ourselves and thought, if this was my product, what would I want to do? I would want to authenticate the machine that was targeted to get the hard drive from. I would want to keep the contents of that hard drive secret as it flew over the wire. I would want to keep the contents of the hard drive from being changed as it flew over the wire. And I would want to make sure that the person that grabbed that hard drive off of that computer was both authenticated and authorized to do so. It turns out that the Ncase Enterprise System meets all of these goals except the first one. It does not provide authentication of where the hard drive came from, which if you think about what the purpose of this thing is, which is to grab people's hard drives to either fire them or send them to jail, perhaps that's the one that is the most important. That's an arguable point. But we would say it's actually very important. So I'm just going to go through a quick, these are actual images from their patent application, which is a very good way of us explaining how the crypto system works. I'm going to do a quick run through of how it works, and then point out the specific thing that we think is a flaw, and then we'll talk about what the impact is. So we're not going to go through the entire crypto system. Basically, what you've got in the Ncase Enterprise environment is you have individual end users, which in this case are called clients. These are the people who are your examiners in the company. You've got the vendor who is Guidance, and they've got some server Oracle sitting on the web.